three teams that we are both going to be selling stock on. My list is probably going to be very different from yours. I know that for a fact because I'm not scared. And every single season, not this, we've had like the same like core teams be good for like the last like 3-4 years, it feels like. And that's just not how the NFL works. So I'm going to be taking a shot on some of these teams and hopefully they hit. And if they don't, whatever. But I'm tired of being boring. So do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. This team was 9-8 last year, I believe, but I think that the magic is going to run out here. I love the move that they made with the coaching staff, but the teams that they beat last year just didn't impress me. And that's the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
That's crazy. No, the Seattle Seahawks. So, like I said, I loved who they brought in on their coaching staff, but I like their team. I just think the Geno Smith magic is going to run out here. And I was looking back at who they beat in 2023 and the list of quarterbacks that they beat in 2023, and to still only go 9-8 and not make the playoffs, didn't impress me. So they beat Jared Goff, Bryce Young, Zach Wilson, Josh Dobbs, Dorian Thomas Robinson. I think it's Kyler Murray twice. I don't remember exactly what week no, they beat Kyler Murray the second time. Will Levis, they beat the absolute worst Philadelphia Eagles team on the face of the planet, and Sam Howell. Yeah. So I'm just not super impressed by that list of quarterbacks that they beat, and they still only went 9-8 and didn't make the playoffs. So I'm down on them.
Yeah, I mean, they also are Jason Myers field goal away from making the playoffs as well if they beat the Rams in that one game where he just absolutely shanked it. I completely disagree with this take. I think Geno is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I don't see why he would take a step back this season. The only thing that I am worried about with this football team as of right now is you cannot have a bottom tier offensive line. So the offensive line can make some sort of positive push this season. I don't see why they can't be in the exact spot that they were in last year, if not a little bit of better one. So I will strongly disagree with this take. And I'm sure you're going to strongly disagree with mine as well. So it's fine.
Hey, that's all right. That's what we're here for. It's probably best we don't agree on every single one of these. I can't see. Your phone's too bright. I still can't see. I don't know what you just showed me your notification center. Oh.
Yeah. All right. So I'll go with my first team, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. An odd report starting to fly around right now about the Ja'Marr Chase situation, where if you look back to what he did in college, he did sit out a full season of college during the COVID year to prep for the draft. And now he has 2 years left on his contract. He's holding out to get a new deal. The owner has pretty much come out and said, we are not doing this right now. We will do it after the season. And then there's some real strong reports going around right now that if a deal is not inked with Ja'Marr Chase, he will just flat not play this season. So I think that is definitely something that needs to be accounted for going into this season. Number two, the Joe Burrow wrist injury. He's the only quarterback ever to have this injury, and we just don't really know how it's going to play out. And it could be completely fine, but as of right now, he can't throw 5 days in a row. So I'm going to be selling some of my Joe Burrow stock for this upcoming season. We talked about it when we previewed the team, but the defense continues to get worse. I don't really love their running back room. This team right now is Joe Burrow and a bunch of guys that seem to not be on the same page. T. Higgins obviously had the very public holdout in the beginning of the season and then ultimately decided to play. A lot of drama with this team this offseason. Don't really think they got better in anywhere other than if Joe Burrow can stay healthy. And I just don't see how this team can be as competitive as expected in an extremely competitive division. And with all that being said, I am selling my stock on the Cincinnati Bengals.
One other thing I forgot to mention with Seattle was that I also think the Cardinals got better. So that's just, and that was 2 of their wins last season. So I think that that's worth noting too. But onto the Bengals, like you mentioned, T. Higgins was another guy that also just like couldn't stay consistently healthy last year. So I think that's a red flag too. And if you'd have Jamar Chase sit out for a full season and your number 2 turned number 1 wide receiver also has injury history, they're probably going to be pretty thin at wide receiver. I mean, I didn't realize that until probably today that Jamar Chase had 2 years left on his deal. I thought this was his last year. So him sitting out 2 years before his deal is over would be crazy. But like you said before, he sat out in college. I do think that's different. I think the COVID year was a little different than this, but it is definitely concerning if you're a Bengals fan that he was willing to sit out for that.
Yeah,
and
that's the only reason I
sit
brought
out for
it up. Yeah,
yeah, would be willing to sit out for this. I know that there is concern amongst Bengals fans that they don't get a deal done and he does sit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but when the season's 2.5 weeks away, and this is the main point of contention
Yeah.
right now, I just don't think it's a great place to be in. He's probably your best player. If you have an opportunity to hit your ceiling as a football team, he has to be involved. And if he's not, even if he is involved, I would probably still be sitting here saying that I'm selling my stock. But if he isn't, I just don't really. You start to look at that wide receiving core, and it's thin. It gets thin quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bengals fans are probably currently in turmoil.
Yeah, I know. Mark is definitely not feeling great about the situation.
Don't bring
Sorry. All right. My second team is the Las Vegas Raiders. I think I mentioned this the other day or on the Discord, but the more and more that I sit here and look at my Raiders over 6.5 win bet, the worse and worse I feel about it. That bet is giving me nightmares, especially with how bad these 2 quarterbacks have been in preseason. Again, it's preseason, but still don't feel great. I think last season was probably a little bit of fool's gold, and I probably did get ahead of myself on the Raiders situation. But realistically, I can't feel great about them with those 2 options at quarterback. And then you take a look at that running back room, and it's equally as bad. So, yeah, definitely not feeling great about the Raiders.
It's really crazy that I sat on this program and I said, Antonio Pierce was a bad hire and the Raiders are going to fucking suck this year. And everybody said I was crazy. Like
I don't feel bad about necessarily the hire. I feel bad about the quarterback running back situation.
Everything about it's bad. The whole thing is bad. So everything plays into each other. I got called absolutely crazy and a hater on here. I completely agree with this take. The Raiders are on, like I said a month ago, the Raiders are on worst record watch. If Gardner Minshew is your quarterback, which we said it was going to be a month and a half ago, or if it's AOC, it doesn't matter. Both of those guys are not good. So
the football player, not the political.
She's a baddie.
Political voice.
Sorry, not to get political. I'm not getting political.
Dude, keep it together.
Sorry. Next. The next team I'm selling my stock on, it's the Buffalo Bills. We talked about how the restructure of this team was much needed and it's going to set them up for success in the future. I don't think that it sets them up for as much success as people think this year. There was a point in the season last year where there was a real opportunity that the Bills could miss the playoffs. And that was with a roster of guys who everybody probably felt a little better about last year than they do this year. So And already they're having injury problems. Matt Milano already went down. I don't know what we're going to really get from this offensive skill group. I think that it's probably still going to be a top tier offense. I'm really worried about the defense. And with in a division where I don't think the Dolphins are going to be world beaters this year, but you still have to deal with the Dolphins. I think the Jets got infinitely better. And then obviously the Patriots beat them last year when the Patriots were a dumpster fire and playing with Bailey Zappi. So if it may be another Patriots win can get flung out of those. So yeah, I just think that the Bills are one of those teams, like we've seen them hang around for the last 4 or 5 years. I just could potentially see them having a down year, super wild card round appearance, potentially miss the playoffs.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah, this was probably one that I don't necessarily agree with you on. Do I think that the Bills are going to be amazing? No, but honestly, I feel like if I was a Bills fan, I'd feel a little bit better, like kind of going into this year than last year. Like you pretty much, it feels like they did shed a bunch of like
time out.
They shed a bunch of these old guys that
stop talking. Last year going into the season, the expectation was for the Bills to win the Super Bowl.
I think that's what it is every year with you.
It's not
Josh Allen.
If not, Josh Allen hasn't even won an AFC championship game. What do you mean? I think
the expectation is to make it to the Super Bowl.
But last year they were the odds-on favorite on every sports book to win the Super Bowl. That's not the case.
That's not how I felt about him.
But that was the overwhelming consensus, is that the Bills were the favorite to win the Super Bowl last year.
Right, but I'm giving you my point of view, not the consensus point of view.
But for you to sit here and say that Bills fans probably feel better about where they're at going into this season than they did last season, you are wrong. Because
they got rid of all of this dead weight from last year. They got rid of a diva at wide receiver. Like they still have Josh Allen.
There was no qualms about Stefon Diggs going into the season last year. You watched the season play out, so you have the answers. But to start the year, to start the season, that was not the case.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted you to clarify that, because that was a little ridiculous.
I mean, I feel still very good about the Bills. The way that even though they lost, obviously they didn't make it to the Super Bowl or anything, but like I feel more confident going into it. I guess just I've actually been like doing the deep dive into it more. I feel like this year I feel better about it just because they had so many old guys that were injury prone that probably were on a contract that was 1 year too long. And now you kind of shed some of that. You still have Josh Allen. You kind of develop that running game a little bit more with Cook as far as the end of that season kind of goes. I don't know. I feel a little bit better about it. But nevertheless, my third team is Miami Dolphins. 1-5 against playoff teams in 2023. I took a look at their schedule for this upcoming season, and they have 10 games versus teams that were in the playoffs last year. Still unsure about the trenches, even though I saw a couple good things from Chop Robinson in preseason. But again, preseason is preseason. Looking at the back end of their schedule, their last 6 games is pretty much what it's going to come down to for their season. And it just so happens that the toughest stretch is in the cold for them. And they go the last 6 games of their season, they go at Green Bay versus the Jets, at Houston versus San Fran, at Cleveland, at the Jets. So that's not how I would want to end my season as a team that's not great playing late in the season.
Yeah, you have zero pushback on me in this one. If you guys want to go watch our Miami Dolphins breakdown, I thought that was one of the best videos we ever recorded, and it got 17 views. So
yeah, that'd be nice. Please take a look at that.
I mean, it's a good breakdown on what we think the Dolphins are going to be, and we just don't think that they're going to be that good. So I don't really have anything to add to that because I agree completely. So,
all right, hit me.
My last team that I am selling stock on is we are going to probably witness, like, all the signs are leading up to it. We are witnessing the absolute, it's going to be a bad Super Bowl hangover for the 49ers. First thing that I want to say is no team has gone back to the Super Bowl after losing in the Super Bowl in 23 seasons. We said that last year when the Eagles lost, and that was kind of I said that all off season, like leading up, like, hey, like I don't really see the Eagles going back because this has never happened. And then what has happened to the Niners? First off, 22 injuries. They had to cancel joint practice with the New Orleans Saints because they didn't even have enough guys to roll out onto the field. Christian McCaffrey has a calf injury. Trent Williams is holding out. The Brandon Ayuk dilemma the entire offseason. They have Hufanga coming off of an ACL. Their starting safety, who knows if he's going to be back to where he wants to be this season. And then obviously you lost Drake Greenlaw to a torn Achilles during the Super Bowl. This team just stinks. And like, I feel like everybody is just slotting them in to go back to the Super Bowl, be the best team in the NFC, when there's a lot of talented teams in the NFC. There's a lot of talented teams in their own division that they have to worry about. Like I said, I think the Seahawks got better. I know you don't, but I think they did. I think the Cardinals got a lot better. I think the Rams are still going to be a competitive team with Matt Stafford, Sean McVay. So I am definitely going to get out in front of this because it is the most obvious Super Bowl hangover of all time. So that is the last team that I'm going to be selling stock on, the San Francisco 49ers.
My only pushback is you said they're going to stink, and I don't think they're going to stink. But I do expect a Super Bowl hangover. It would be the least surprising thing.
Yeah, I think that's like you say that, but like also at the same time, like last year, like going into the season, like everybody would have said that you were absolutely crazy for thinking that the Eagles would be even slightly bad. And the Eagles were stinky last season. They were just flat bad on defense and on offense. And then they lost to the fucking Baker Mayfield Bucks in the playoffs. I think that we could see a very similar situation to that, where I think that they might be able to get to a point where they are a super wild card team, but I don't really see this team doing any real damage with going deep. They've had deep runs the last few seasons, and it feels like everything's starting to really add up on this football team. So I'm out on the 49ers this season.
Last year was the year that they were also the most healthy throughout these entire couple of years, and we saw them make it all the way to the Super Bowl and not get the job done. The odds of them being like the fifth healthiest team, like they were last year, something like that, they were definitely top 10 healthiest. The odds of that happening again are probably not great, especially when you make a deep run. I know it's probably not that big of a deal in the long haul, but like you have a little bit shorter of an off season. You play a couple more games, and those things I would imagine start to add up the more and more good seasons you put together. I mean, maybe not necessarily for the Chiefs, but like I feel like they're an anomaly. It seems like every other team that comes off of a Super Bowl, we begin to see it slowly break down throughout a season.
And I just want to go back to Kyle Shanahan's time since he started coaching, and when he does start to experience injuries on the rosters. 6-10 one season, 4-12 another season. Then he went 13-3. Injury season, 6-10, 10-7, 13-4, 12-5. So what I'm seeing is like when these rosters start to get a little bit of like injury plagued or have some of these issues, it's not just they're like bad, like things get bad quick, and like they might win 6 games. So I'm not going to come out and say that they're going to win 6 games, but I think things are a lot worse in San Francisco right now than anybody is kind of leading on. Everybody's still slating them as the best team in the NFC. And like I said, I feel like there's a lot of good teams in the NFC this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of teams that should be taken seriously, and it doesn't really feel like I don't know. Like, I don't really think there's like a clear cut number one. Like, I think there's probably a handful of teams that have a legitimate shot.
I think that you can say the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Green Bay Packers, the Lions.
Yeah.
Those are 4 teams that I could easily see making the Super Bowl this year. I could. I know people don't.
100%.
I know people don't like the Cowboys, but I mean, they could technically go to the Super Bowl. But it just feels like, why is everybody? You can't just slate these teams in. One stat that I love to do is how many years it's been since a team has gone back since losing in the Super Bowl. It just doesn't happen too often. So I guess we will watch it play out.
So difficult.
White clouds blowing out when we max 4-5, not the size, but it kick up.